there's, I forget the designation, there's a category of visa that you're temporary worker.
They're only for the summer.
A lot of the Irish kids are not kids from, I don't know, from Pittsfield.
Well,
or something.
we were over in Ireland one summer back in the 90s. And if you went down the Cape here, there were all Irish kids that just stay working, summer jobs down there. In Ireland that summer,
US.
Oh, Polish.
Polish.
Oh, Poland.
Everywhere, everywhere.
Okay. So our kids don't do that, or?
I don't know.
Don't do it. Go to Europe, and go city to city and go into restaurants and get a little job to get food and enough money for housing.
The Commonwealth nation. Anybody who was associated formally with Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, India, etc. It was for a long period of time. You didn't have to go through any strict visa process. You could just get on a plane from Australia or New Zealand, go to London, walk into a pub, apply for a job. You didn't need special papers or anything like that. And you'd be able to work there for as long as you wanted to.
And remember,
I don't know if that's still the case.
in the British system, they have 3 terms. So there's like, I forget, 3 months and then a month off, 3 months. And so on.
Michaelmas term.
And you have to take a test in order to go into the next farm. So it's it's completely different.
Oh, so they're on vacation at different times.
Yeah.
Able to be in different places.
We're watching movies in the big.
Yeah,
Good.
I saw it wasn't on.
Yeah, there's no audio.
But it's recorded.
King Kong never made much sense to me.
Yeah, I didn't even bother touching it.
Yeah. By the time you get it out, after anybody would have given up.
Oh, no. Distractions are good.
Is it Rich that usually sets that up or something?
Yeah, and I didn't see him when I came in, so maybe he's on vacation or got the day off. And also, pretty slim pickings on the coffee cake this morning. I mean, unless everybody ate it all.
Yeah, no.
And when I came in, there was a paucity.
Oh, okay. Well.
I don't eat Boston.
Yeah, where did that go?
So it's word.
The antonym to a paucity is a shitload.
Now you're well beyond my understanding. It's depressing to watch Jeopardy at night now. If I get 2 questions right, it's a good day.
Yeah, I did all right last night, but you're right, anything more than 2 is.
I want to know how having a doctor as a contestant gets him, a medical category.
Yes, exactly. Boy, you cleared that category.
Yeah. There are some people that have brains that retain everything that they have ever experienced and can spit it out as well.
The older you get,
it's
it's easier.
like that.
I've heard that.
Just spit it out.
I'm spitting out a lot.
I remember.
Yesterday.
That's photographic memory.
Yeah.
Okay, they can recall things like that.
It's really surprising. I'm trying to remember, one of those people is a woman who used to be on, she was a taxi driver on the show Taxi. Forget her name. Pretty redheaded woman. Yeah. She's got to be in her 60s now, I think. But she's one of those characters. And she can be in a conversation and somebody will bring out a certain date.
This is in real life, not in
Real life,
as a character.
1993 or whatever, and she'll say that was a Tuesday.
Oh.
Yeah, that's.
And this happened on that day. and all that shit, I just.
Well, you know, on that point, as a kid, and I bet everybody here knows Clark Chatter.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
So
Knows him or
on
knows
that
of.
point, he was amazing, so I was aware, I'd come back to Cohasset, and I'd been away 3 years, and I'd show up at Clark's house. You know, what's going on? Give me all the dirt, all the what's going on. And he could say, I remember Charlie, you and I and Humpty went and saw the Red Sox game. And you lost your hat, something like that. And remember when was that caught? You'll have the date, and he's right, because then you say, oh, Jesus, that's right, I did.
Yeah.
And I mean, that would be a typical thing.
I didn't know him that well.
When you have that, I don't know, what do you call it? I mean,
I don't know.
people were there and he'd say, yeah, you over my house and my mother cooked this dinner and in came Walter Sweeney or something. Then we went and you think about it, he's right.
Yeah.
No,
So that
no,
was just an extraordinary skill that.
Oh,
man
yeah.
had.
the trick is to stay in the present moment. If you are thinking of something while the other person is talking, you will not remember.
Well, that's a good point.
If you stay in the present moment, you will recall many things that other people will look at you and say, how did you remember that?
Yeah.
And it's not a forced thing, it's a consciousness of present
Yeah.
to what's going on. And many people have it in extraordinary things. Now, I am bipolar. Okay, that means I go to the extreme and love being in the manic state. I asked Kevin to read something here because we don't know the manic state or the depressive state. There are two cases. One is monopolar, that's depression. The other is bipolar. And when I get into the manic state, I recall things. But if I go into the depression state, I'm suicidal. Now, there is one question, Kevin. The third line, I got it in the past, it should be in the present.
Could I just say something now before Kevin reads this, is that in talking in the car on the way here, Jim was talking about wanting to discuss this and get some of his whole perspective and everything out in the open. But, you know, he was talking about it being clearly beyond what we had talked about as a 2 or 3 or whatever minute sort of guideline. I want to make sure people are aware of that before we get going. You know what I mean? Because he's talking about, what'd you say, 10 or 15 minutes? And I just think people need to be aware of that.
You're talking about the time guideline.
Yeah.
Good.
I mean, we did talk about 2 or 3 minutes, and this could be a discussion, or even a presentation that could be well beyond that, and I just want people to.
This little item won't take more than 2 minutes to read. I guess it's a question of how long you want to discuss.
Yeah,
Well, you know, Tom, keep me to 10 minutes. Okay,
I assume you mean Steve.
Steve.
or Tom.
Or Tom.
Do it. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom could do it.
Yeah.
All right, this is titled, Why Me? Yes, I am the dangerous one. I am bipolar. I was suicidal. I think that's what Jim is saying. I am suicidal at times. The joy and the curse of being bipolar, the high and the low of mental illness. There's a tragedy, calamity, and joy of love. The joy is the manic stage of the mind. The mind knows everything in this state, but the mind knows only an apparent reality. Solutions to problems come easily. The mind's belief is it has the answer. Downfall comes if the mind is ignored. Paradox is a twisted, hideous state of mind. The mind controls the body in the manic state, but the mind does not care. It has an answer. Oh, the joy of the manic state. The mind is king and lord of all. and wishes it could stay forever. Hiding within the mind is a reality that this joy cannot stay forever. Crash is coming, depression will set in. Then it happens, it always happens. Rejection, the taste of reality occurs. The crash is the state of depression. He minds joy in the blink of an eye. Disappears forever, the kingdom is gone. Activity stops. Only a useless state exists. Loneliness sets in, no one cares. Joy is gone, only looking at the four walls, where a hopeless state of depression exists. The mind is separated from love. Love is the reason for existence, and the desire for love is dying. Need for company must be there. The mind needs to tell its story, or the depressed mind will end it all. Ooh. Exclamation point.
You left one thing out. It's called age.
That'll cheer you up. Now, the big thing is that the author of the medical book, co-author, is Redford Jameson. In the 1980s or thereabouts, she wrote two books. One, an autobiography called The Unquiet Mind, and the second one is The Cauldron of Fire. It is an inherited disease back in the days when I ended up in depression, was suicidal. They could not tell if a person was bipolar because they only saw the depressive state. I was treated for depression for 17 years. I came back to the doctor after 17 years and said to him, I went on a happy high. And he looked up at me and he said, I have to test you for bipolar. And it's a battery of tests they give, and they can see that from my answers whether I'm manic or depressive. Now that's the old term. Today they call it bipolar. Because you go from happiness to depression in a blink of an eye.
So I had a question about the reading. It said that you're in the euphoric state, and then if there's rejection, it can drive you to depression.
It's like that, bingo, a thought. Just a single thought. You go to the office.
So,
It's all generated, not external even.
so how can we help you if
That's what I
you're
want
at
to
the
get
edge?
into. That's what I want. You don't ask the question, how do you feel? You know, I'll say, oh, well, I'm fine. What you ask is, what is your mood? Where are you mentally? You go on, and if the answer is, I don't know, you come back and say, yes, you do. That is whether a person is depressed or manic. And usually a person that's depressed will tell you he's depressed or she's depressed. The second thing is the way in which you treat somebody is to sit down and say to them, let's breathe.
Breathe.
Breathe, because breath is life.
Yeah.
Okay, it takes the person out of his mind back to reality because he's concentrating on breathing. Okay,
Okay, that's very
and it
helpful.
relaxes him. It is why the coach tells the basketball player to take a breath. It relaxes the body and controls the mind. Okay, the person who is bipolar will stay in the present moment and listen and hear. Okay, if he does not stay in the present moment, and goes to the past or the future. As I say, the past is history, the future is mystery. Okay, if he goes there, chances are she will go into depression. When I was asked, how would I treat something? I said, I would respect the personality. Because if I go in and judge the person, okay, I will eventually end up in depression. I have to stay in the present moment. I cannot judge somebody. I have to love somebody. And what is love? You've got two eyes. That means if a person is upset, you hold on. You've got two ears to hear and to listen. Okay, you're out with your wife and she looks around and she sees 4 or 5 restaurants. And you decide, I'll go to this one. It's a little expensive and might break the budget a little bit, but she'll be happy you made the decision. Okay, you got 2 nostrils. Your wife comes downstairs in the end of the years, and you look up and you smell the perfume, and she's got on a beautiful nightgown, and you're wondering where the time went. Okay, that's love. Okay.
That's a lot for us to
Right,
consider.
and you're willing to give up your life for them. But if you are in the state. And really the person that I studied after I left Middletown was a course on formative spirituality. It was written by Adrian Van Camp. Okay, and he was a young man in Holland. Okay, and he had 2 degrees, one in child psychology, one in theology. And he wrote the formative spirituality. It's 7 volumes. And basically he said, you know, there are 2 people. There are people that do not believe in God. They believe in the actions of man. He calls it the actions of man. The other that believes in somebody that transcends him. Now, he did not want to use the term God or anything else. So he got his whole terminology for this. Okay, a person that goes into and believes in a transition, and this is why I say we're all a church that believe in God. Okay, because we believe in someone that is beyond us. If we don't, then we do the actions of man. Okay, now, if you do the actions of man, you will create harmony, beauty, and confidence. If you're doing the actions of man, you'll end up in chaos.
Why don't we take a moment and have people react to what you suggested?
Yeah.
A lot of things to think about.
Yeah.
Oh, I know, it's a whole lifetime of study.
Yeah.
Look at this expression that people use today. How are you? And the guy says, I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah, that's just total.
That's gotta be one of the
Rhetoric.
all responses that goes nowhere. Neither one answers the question.
Yeah.
How are you? You should say, I'm anxious, and that draws out. the conversation.
If you really don't want to express where you are mentally, okay? Because you don't know the person, really, unless you have a friend like Kevin or someone like Shelley. I've taken 5 medicines for bipolar, and every one of them affected my nervous system. So it was suggested to me to go down to Shelley. And when I realized I was into depression, I wrote to Shelley. I crashed.
Shelley is an
Immediately-
acupuncturist.
Oh,
I
okay.
went down to Shelley, and she's an acupuncturist. Okay, Shelley Kelly. And
How many people have got acupuncture? And it worked.
It worked.
Oh, yeah. We're-
Yeah. Did it work for you again? Really?
Oh, what the disease is when you get into depression, you're going around in America and you can't sleep. Okay, sleep is the key to breaking it. And with acupuncture, I sleep.
Yeah.
Uh,
You probably have a frequent puncturing power.
I go to every 3 weeks. I really should be going every 2 weeks.
It's not cheap.
It's not cheap.
And it's not
because-
covered by
No,
insurance.
it's covered by
Right.
nothing.
And
Yeah.
the only one,
So effective.
the only
Yes.
time that's covered by insurance, if you have an MD after your name.
Yes,
Right.
yeah,
Otherwise, I have to pay out of pocket.
yeah. It
No,
is
no,
very
it's
annoying.
covered on that.
I'd like to segue, if I may,
Right there.
Okay.
yesterday I called, and spoke with Jim Carpenter.
Oh,
yeah.
Jim Carpenter is a member of this group and about 2 years ago or so, he had a stroke and ended up with a right leg paralyzed.
yeah,
It's- But it's come back enough that he can get around with a walker with help. So he has somebody at the house
yeah.
during the day. But I spoke with him, he sounded good. And so that's why I wanted to get the Zoom going in case
Oh.
he wanted it going in.
Did he say anything about coming back?
No, he just,
I think it
we
would be
just said, well,
difficult.
I'm here. He says it's difficult to get out. So he just doesn't, I guess it takes an awful lot of logistical planning and effort.
Yeah.
To get over here. He came once.
Yeah.
yeah.
In a wheelchair.
Yeah, and it was not your small conventional wheelchair.
No,
It was
no.
around a large item, but.
But he, to get into the car. His garage is, I guess, on a lower level than the door to the house.
Yeah, yeah.
Into the garage, so he has it's a stair lift. That he has to well, maybe he could use his walker to get over there, and then you gotta get the wheelchair down.
Yeah.
On the garage floor level, and then you have to transition into the car.
Yeah.
Pack up the wheelchair.
Yeah.
And then reverse it all. So it's not an easy task, so,
But he can get around on a walker now.
oh, yeah, yeah. You visited him with his,
Yes,
I think we might have been there together, it might have been a year ago.
yeah, I think we were together. Obviously, we weren't in the moment because I can't remember.
But he, when he wants to get up from the chair to his walker, he calls for
His
his
aide,
woman to
yeah, he's
help
got
him.
24-hour care. He did that. I don't know if he still has somebody staying there overnight.
I don't know. But then, talk about depression. I would
Yeah.
be very depressed.
Absolutely. Yes, he was a pretty vibrant guy.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I, next time I speak with him, I'll ask him.
Where do you
What's your
see
mood?
him? Where do you see him?
Well, I'll just speak to him by phone.
Oh, by phone. you
Yeah.
call. Okay.
We did go by his house. He lives here in
He-
town.
I think he invited us, or we.
Yeah,
invited or
yeah,
so, I
we,
can't
we
remember.
made the arrangement. I
Yeah.
forget how it all came about.
Hmm.
Yeah, I remember we had Girl Scout cookies.
Who's the other guy that lives near him over?
George.
She used to come.
Yeah,
George Detloff.
What, yeah.
Yeah,
He hasn't been.
yeah, he lives like across the street. He has, Parkinson's.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, as anybody knows, is pretty,
Mm.
it's a downhill slope.
Yeah.
It's pretty degenerative. But I need to make a real point of sitting down and going through that list.
Along those lines, I saw Steve, and I can't remember his last name, the Fidelity guy.
Ebony.
Yeah, in
Ebony.
the grocery store about 2 weeks
Oh,
ago.
no kidding.
And I encouraged him to come back. He didn't sound like he was going
Yeah.
to. He looked a little older, like we all do.
Well, yeah.
I hadn't seen him for
How the hell
3 or
did
4
that
years,
happen?
you know, but
Yeah,
There was another fellow, Steve, and I can't remember his last name offhand, but he had had a stroke and.
oh, Parnell.
Parnell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've seen him at the dump a couple of times.
He
He seems
is-
to be doing very good.
In a constant rehabilitative mode.
Yeah, every week.
He's seeing speech therapists and movement therapists.
And I think he's still working.
Yeah, there's an insurance company or.
Yeah.
MFS, yeah.
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 Oh,
What
this
a
is the guy
terrific
that
guy.
couldn't find words or something.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
But he
He's
was-
fairly young.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Isn't everybody?
Yeah, but I'll never forget, he just did, and he still does, go to the Y in Hanover.
Yeah, he's in great shape.
He actually
Very good.
teaches some courses there, swimming therapy courses. But he drove me back home. I, just who doesn't know, I don't drive. I don't have a driver's license. And so he drove me home, and this was, he was probably about 2 weeks after starting to drive again after the stroke. And his car has, you know, as many do now, the lane shift alarm. I think it was going off about every 30 seconds. It was driving me crazy. But we obviously got home. But it was just funny that thinking of this guy had, you know, just getting back to driving after this pretty severe stroke. I mean, he really laid it low and having his car drifting to the next. It's a little unnerving.
But the stroke is just the language area of the brain, nothing motor. Right?
Oh, no, he's got definite physical.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I didn't realize that.
yeah. Because he's also doing occupational therapy. I think that's, he's gotten more under control. It's the language that's the persistent.
Jim, I'd like to go back to your acupuncture.
Yeah.
I'd just like to ask a question, okay? I had success with it, okay? I mean, I had sciatica because of doing stupid things that I tend to do. And I had been to doctors, I had been to physical therapy, I've been to everything, and in desperation, I went to acupuncture. And it happened to be a retired, non-retired, a music teacher who gave up. He had so much stress that he used to go to acupuncture, and it was so successful that he quit teaching and became an acupuncturist.
Oh, wow.
His name was Dan Carr, very good trumpet player. He's still around. I wish he was still practicing. So anyway, I went to him. Figure, hey, hell, I got nothing to lose. And I literally almost crawled into his office and walked out.
Exactly.
Okay, now that's the best thing that acupuncture, he said, does is nerve. It's a sciatic nerve.
That's a positive report.
Yeah, so the nerve, so in other words, you have disc in your back, you do something and you bang a disc out of place. The disc, you know, and it makes swelling. And then the swelling affects the nerve. It's so it's a catch-22. It gets so bad. When I would drive to school, when I had it, I'd have to, from Hingham to Quincy, I'd have to make 2 stops. Get out of the car, walk around a couple of times, then get back in.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so as a result of it, the first day I walked out, I felt great. A couple of days later, it came back, which he said it would. I had to make 3 appointments. And it was, you know, like 75, 80 bucks a piece.
Yeah.
And then I was fine. And I didn't have it again for 10 years because I didn't do stupid things. But then I went back and did it again. I went back a second time, same thing happened. You know, so it just, now, I don't know if all acupuncturists are that good. One of the things he did is he put the needles in and he connected the needles to a TENS machine. Okay,
What's that?
well, an electronic, yes,
Yeah. it's like a-
so it's an acronym for something, but anyway, that seemed to really do the trick.
Yeah.
So me, well, I don't
Well,
know,
it's a
but
mild,
Very low level.
yeah, low level, but you can feel it. I mean, you can feel it where it goes.
some,
In other words, so with you, I'm just trying to get in my own mind, what did it actually make you feel like, other than better?
Remember, it's the mind that's controlling you, okay? And the state is, I can't sleep. Okay?
Yeah.
We're given medicine to affect the nervous system. And everything we're given in medicine has a side effect.
Not
Now, Nave, I can hold up this hand and it's straight. If I take Nave, this hand will shake like that.
Yeah.
These are the side effects of modern medicine.
Yeah.
It was suggested to me to use alternative medicine.
Yeah.
By Steve May. I called up the acupuncturist here in Cohasset. He asked me, can I climb stairs? And I said, I'm on a walker. He suggested Shelley. And for 9 years, I've been going to Shelley. Why? Because it relaxes the body and allows me to sleep, which breaks the circular thinking in my mind.
What does she actually do for treatment?
What's in the needles,
Yeah.
period.
Just the needle?
Oh, she usually, I don't know if she does with you, but she burned and
Yeah.
her,
Well, she has
I
a,
forgot
you know,
the
she
name.
plays music.
Mhm.
And the
Oh,
big thing on it is, if you fall asleep, it has a tremendous effect. Because for me, breaking that circular thinking allows me to come back to reality. Now, I should be going every 2 weeks for this treatment,
Yeah.
but it's too expensive
Yeah,
for me
it's-
to
it's
do
too
that,
bad. It's-
so I go 3.
That's sad. That's,
But living in Cohasset housing with the permission of my primary care, that cost is deducted from my income.
Right.
And then it's what's left over that I pay the
Yeah.
rent down in Cohasset
does she
housing.
use the cups?
She also uses the hands-on treatment.
Yeah.
So she uses both, which soothes the mind and relaxes me. I'm so relaxed, if I don't use the walker, I will fall down.
Yeah.
And I have. Okay, I stepped off the curb, reached for the car and I was right on my face. That's how relaxed.
So when I went to her as well, and it was sciatic. And I don't know who else here has experienced sciatica, but it is debilitating. It's, you cannot get a comfortable spot. It's just unbelievable with the 2 or maybe 3 things that I did to relieve the sciatica. It was with Shelley, regular visits to the acupuncturist, and the other thing was deep tissue massage. I mean, not just a, you know, a nice Swedish massage or whatever. I mean, really deep tissue. And there's a woman that used to practice here in Cohasset. She's now in Hingham. Her name will come, I can't remember her name, Amy Terrier. It was unbelievable, the combination of those 2 things, it was miraculous.
Neither is covered by insurance.
Neither are covered by insurance.
Well,
Like both unbelievably more effective than, you know, I went to the doctor and, you know, they wanted to start immediately, they start talking about back surgery. You know, and they give you some pain pills.
Or heavy
you know.
drugs. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, chiropractic, when I first went to a chiropractor years ago, that wasn't covered. And then all of
it
a
is
sudden
now.
now it is covered.
Yeah.
At least on my plan,
yeah, it
you
is.
know. I mean, it's so stupid. that They don't cover these things, because in the long run, they're gonna end up paying more.
Yeah, because we have a regular
The
once a
big-
month
The
appointment.
big
at the
thing
chiro.
on chiropractic is the medical doctors control the insurance.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, that's right.
And to make sure it's covered, you have to have an MD after your name.
Well, no,
I had an experience very similar to Richard's. And I went to the same woman, but it was 40 years ago.
oh, no kidding.
Good
And
recall.
I had, no, but I had been up foolishly, get up on a ladder, painted the house, stained the house one year. On an old wooden extension ladder, round rungs, and I hit it in a pair of boat shoes. So I ended up with plantar fasciitis that would,
That's another one.
I'd be up, you know, I'd get up in the morning and just hobble because I couldn't. Bend my ankles, so it went on. therapy, really put on a tennis ball, every conventional thing that was out there for therapy, self-therapy. And I read an article in the Patriot Ledger one time about this woman that suffered from, I think it was cystic fibrosis. And it was a very, in her case, a very painful experience. And it talked about the relief she got from visiting this woman, Shelley Sullivan. And so I called her up on the phone and said, this is what I have. She said, well, the insurance isn't gonna cover it. And she said, it's about $70 a visit. She said, it's about an hour and 15 minutes. And she said, we'll know after 2 visits whether it's gonna work for you or not. So I said, it was that painful. I said, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I went down and same thing Jim describes. You know, a little soft music, something burning in the incense, you know.
Yeah.
Afternoon, oh yeah, this is okay. I can go through the rest of the day with this. And the needles and a little electrode.
Yep.
Very low level charge. And after the first visit, I noticed things seemed better the next day. After 4 visits, I was done. I've
Yeah.
never been back and I never had that problem.
Really
again.
knows her stuff.
My ankles and feet are just not worth shit. I've broken both of them, torn ligaments and everything else, so that's another problem. But that plantar fasciitis is cured for me.
The important thing she said to you though, is that this might not work.
Yeah.
Okay, now
Yeah,
I
it's
went,
very
I have a
straightforward.
former student that I taught and who is now an acupuncturist. And she is part of this group at Crown Colony. It's like a whole floor of Chinese medicine. They have all kinds of things there, yeah.
No kidding.
And so she was doing the thing with the cups.
Yeah.
And she told me before, she said, this may work and it might not work,
Yeah.
you know, and it didn't. You know, that did absolutely nothing for
When you
me.
say cups,
They put it,
did nothing but gave you a bunch of red marks on your
yeah,
back.
red marks on the back, and they put it under, yeah, it's,
They're hot,
yeah.
and they create a suction.
Yeah.
See the movie Zorba the Greek?
Right on your
They
back.
do
not
that
that I
in
remember.
the movie.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah,
Yeah.
because another thing is with hot stones, but the cups create a suction. They look like those old glass insulators.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And the.
I was
they're really
disappointed. I thought it was gonna work. Seemed to make sense. It makes sense to me. But the bottom line is, when you don't have any more pain, it works.
Exactly.
And however they arrive at it.
And it's not like cardiac arrest, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't really trust that that's gonna
And
solve what I have.
everybody's system is also so different.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, there's no one thing that's gonna work.
Yeah.
And the secret is to find out what works for you.
Exactly.
You know,
I had the same experience you have. Had a tremendous headache about 15 years ago. I mean, it was terrible, and I went to very specialist doctors, VA hospital and civilian. And one of the doctors sent me to an acupuncturist. He put in needles the top of my head all the way to my heel, all the way down my body. And when he got through, I had no headache, and I haven't had a headache since.
it redirects. The way it was explained,
Exactly.
it
It
redirects.
One thing, what is happening in the body is you are producing the endorphins that is affecting the body. And as a result, the body heals from within. You are not introducing an outside chemical to affect the body.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
a good point.
and the big thing for me is sleep. But if I sleep, I break the cycle of depression.
Because much of the medication that's prescribed is really not curing, it's masking.
Yeah.
It's making it feel better.
It's like a story of Grant at Appomattox. He had a terrible headache for days. He got the message that Lee wanted to surrender, his headache disappeared. It's-
That's a good story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
can.
I have a headache story. The guy goes to the doctor, he says, the doctor got a headache, it goes to the back of my neck, to cover my forehead. What can be done? He says, I don't know, go get another opinion. Doc, I got a headache that goes from the back of my neck to the top of my forehead, it's killing me, my shoulder. Then he runs a bunch of tests, he said, there's only one thing that will cure that, is you have to be castrated. He says, oh my God, no. He puts up with the headache for a long time, finally. He says, okay, I can't stand anymore, do the operation, so. He has the operation, oh, I'm very depressed, so. I'll get a whole new wardrobe, so he goes to the tailor, and says, I want a whole new wardrobe from top to bottom, and measures him up, and he says, no, what size for your jockey short? And he says, 34 jockey short. He said, no. He says, if you wore a 34 jockey shorts, you would have a headache.
That is.
We have to remember that.
Boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's worth it.
Has anybody tried other alternative treatments or medicine? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I had sciatica. And it was a long, drawn out process of pain. And the doctor recommended surgery. And he explained that the disc is not in fact a disc, but it's a cushion that keeps the vertebrae separated. And this sciatica is the result of the cushion herniating or breaking through, and the insides of the disc, the cushion, extends out into the nearby area and impinges the nerve, the sciatic nerve. And he said, what we'll do is this, we'll open you up and we'll just simply cut off that part of the disc that has herniated. And we'll sort that together again, sew you up and send you on your way. Problem solved.
That's what you did?
Yeah.
You had surgery.
Had a problem, yeah, I've had a problem since, it's.
The
30
percentage of
years ago.
back surgery success,
Mhm.
the success of surgery for back problems is very low.
Yeah.
Very low. I was told that by a surgeon.
Yeah.
He said, really think about this carefully, but when the pain you get from sciatica is just so intense.
It's
That
unbelievable.
you gotta do something.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done had the acupuncture not worked.
No,
Two side stories to that. And that is that if I had the pain shooting down the back of my leg into my foot, I could bend myself backwards. Okay, and put some pressure on the thing that, in a sense, has the tendency to push that herniation back into the cushion. And I could feel my foot coming back alive again. It's like waking up from a sleep with your arm in the wrong position. The last part was kind of funny. I almost feel guilty about having the surgery. But the only way to get into the hospital was to call the fire department. And these big guys came in with a stretcher, which was nothing more than a board. And laid me on the board. And as soon as they laid me on the board, flat board, no cushions, the pain disappeared.
Wow.
But I wasn't about to tell them. Never mind.
Yeah.
Let's go for a ride. And the whole trip to the hospital, I suffered no pains whatsoever.
Keep driving.
But what I did,
But you go around again.
but every bump I said,
Yeah. Well, along those lines, I used to have this problem when in my 30s and 40s. I would get this pain and do something, move wrong. I'd have to be flat on my back for one and a half to 2 weeks. I wouldn't eat anything because I had to crawl to the bathroom. I didn't want to have to shit. So I would lose 15 pounds. But after that, all of a sudden it would clear up and then I could walk. I did get a brace, which I still have, and occasionally about once every couple of years. I'll have to put this brace on. And I back then I would wear it to work and lie down at noon and so forth. But just what you say, being flat on your back, I was fine. Just, but the funny thing is now, I feel I've sort of grown out of it. I haven't had this problem for a long time.
Well, I think, I've often wondered about that because, I'm just guessing, I'm not a doctor, I don't have any idea, but I would suggest that this cushion has hardened. Or at least got tougher as we get older. Yeah. I don't know.
Sciatic nerve runs from your toe.
Yeah.
It's the largest nerve in your body to your waist.
All the way.
Okay, now at the end of acupuncture, the second time, I have two toes on my left foot that are numb and have very little feeling and they just kind of lay there. And so I told the acupuncturist about it and he said, well, he said, you can come back and I can take care of that. And I just thought to myself, I'm not gonna screw around with this thing. I'm feeling good. I don't wanna mess it up. I don't wanna do it. So I still have it years later, those two toes. And I don't know why. But it's such an amazing thing and it's just rerouting the pain. That's what it's doing. It's sending it to another place and they know all these places in your body. And I never thought of it though, for what you described today. I think that's remarkable and great.
Like Frank said, he had needles from his head to his toe.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a problem with both the bottoms of both feet.
Yeah.
That's where the discomfort was. I had pins here,
Right.
behind my knees,
Yeah.
yeah. And to use those small electrodes for the pins that were in my ankle. It was going up and down my whole body, the whole. Yeah, and I think she said at the time that caused a rush of blood to that joint, of those joints in my ankles. And that helped with healing. But whatever it was, 4 visits, I was happy as a clam.
Yeah.
Oh, magic. That's okay with me too.
That's right.
We're talking about a lot of health stuff here. I'm just curious.
Imagine that.
See if people our age. Many of us have either a artificial knee or a couple of them or a hip combination. I just wonder, in this group here, how many people have had an artificial joint? And if they had, how did it work out? I'm just curious. And we a lot of times.
No,
Has anybody?
I'm still all original parts.
I guess good. The reason why I say that is, I mean, I was in a head-on car accident. I fractured the elbow in
Oh,
4 places.
oh, wow.
They put a bar in or whatever with 4 screws. And 2 years later, they took it out. But it's deformed, you can see.
Yeah.
The
But it
elbow,
works.
it works great. I mean, yeah.
Has anybody had a hip here? No?
Oh,
Go on, how'd that work out? Perfect, great. Anybody with
I
a
had
knee?
both hips done, each one had a different incision size.
How many years ago did you?
Oh, back 91.
Oh,
And you had to replace it? Wow.
wow.
They both done it at the same time?
No, done over a period of about 3 years. But the thing that did affect me was the rotator cuff treatment that I got.
Oh,
Now I can get my arm up there, but sometimes I can't do the right thing with it.
Wow.
It doesn't hurt, it just.
Righty tighty.
So in this group, you had two, well, that's something a little different though. I mean, you had real trauma, external trauma.
yeah.
Dawn just what? Just kind of wore out? You didn't have any specific injury? Okay.
No knee
So
replacement.
we only.
Just
in this
discomfort
group, there's only
that
one
was diagnosed rotator cuff.
I think that's interesting. That's,
Yeah, it is.
because it seems that you run into a lot of people that
Right.
have either a hip or.
Both knees.
And this group here is, that's unusual, I think.
My niece is married to a guy who runs, his own company. And he does a lot of maintenance on aircraft engines and things like that, the UPS. FedEx, places like that, various airports around New England. And he's always done heavy work, big, strong guy. He's had both knees replaced. And both rotator cuffs replaced.
Okay.
And he's 40.
Wow.
He's what?
He's 43 years old.
Oh, God.
But he is like, usually it's 2 months, 3 months. He's intense doing the therapy and does everything that they tell him to do. And he's back at work, 5, 6 days a week going at it.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm amazed.
Yeah.
But I mean, those are poor jokes that I understand are pretty complex and difficult. And
Well, have to have all that replaced to be in your forties.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. You have to, after you have it, same thing, I had a bad car accident, okay, before airbags. And so they had to do knee surgery. And I went through all this stuff, then about 6 months later, I'm walking and then all of a sudden I'm on the ground. The knee was it would just lock and it was just giving out. So I went through a process of the surgeon and everything, so what they ended up doing is this is before microsurgery, so there was a big cut on, I still had the scar on the knee, and they had to suture it with wire. That's the only thing that would hold it because of your knee. So for a long time, I couldn't sleep, because every time you turn, you'd hit the end of the wire, and it would wake you up. Ridiculous. So anyway, what they did is they took all the cartilage out. They scraped everything out of there, but there's nothing in it.
Yeah.
They didn't do this is before replacements or anything like that. And so, I tend to be very active with stuff, and I said, I gotta figure out a way. I learned shortly after that, I have to do leg exercises every day, and I have the equipment at home. Okay, and to keep that knee working. And when I would go on a fishing trip up in the mountains and stuff, I couldn't do anything. And so every single time I would come home, my knee would be achy. As soon as I got back in my exercises, I was perfectly fine, and I still am. I mean, it's.
I thought you were gonna say you've only fished in cold water rivers there. Had to numb things down.
I did, but I don't do that anymore because I think at age 80, fast water is not the place to be.
Really?
Yeah,
Bugger.
your balance. At age 50, you've lost 50% of your balance.
Yeah.
And when I was going
Well, there's-
fishing and would be in the water, I would start doing balance exercises a month before. So now, we only fish and the guy that I fished was about 3 or 4 years older than me. We go on what they call a drift boat, with the guys in the middle paddling and we're on each end,
Oh,
and it's probably the most successful way, because when you're wading, well, you can how far can you go in a day? Maybe a quarter of a mile or something like that. Getting a drift boat, you're covering seven miles a day, so you're catching a hell of a lot more fish.
and when you're waiting, you hit a slippery rock. or whatever
Yeah,
else.
and then the problem is you can't see.
Yeah,
Okay, you can't see what's under there until you hit it. And I've been in I was in one place that was so bad. The guide was, 20-year-old guy that just walks on it like it's nothing. I said, get over here. And I held on to him. He took me out to where I wanted to be. And I never moved out of that place, that little circle of place.
Yeah.
The whole time, because I was afraid. The guy I fished with has gone, I've had to pull him out twice.
Is it uneven rocks or something?
Oh, yeah, it's not only that, but big rocks, no rocks, then it goes down.
Oh.
and then
Well,
the whole limey rock.
Well, this is the problem. We were at a place that there were trees, overhanging branches overhanging off the water, so the sun never got there. So there was all kinds of algae and stuff in the rock. It was like a skating rink. But the bad thing was, or the good thing was, the fishing was great. And there was like a bubble line going down, and all I had to do it was a long cast, but as soon as I hit that bubble line, I got a fish every single time.
Oh, man.
How big was the fish?
Probably maybe 12 inches to 20. You get a couple of 20-inch ones while you're there.
What bubble line is it?
Oxygen. The fish is staying around where there's more oxygen, and I don't know if it was coming from a spring below or something like that, but it was very, very noticeable.
You brought up the issue of balance. I don't know how many people here have a balance problem. But I do, and I recall years and years ago, my dad was a painter and he had an occasion to paint a church steeple, Wallace. And he rigged up all of the staging necessary to get to the top, and he invited me up one time because it was a hell of a view. He said, just remember this, as you're moving on the staging. Plant 3, grab 1. So you had 3 of your extremities that were attached to the scaffolding, even if it didn't sit standing on it. And then you would move 1, and then you could move the other one. And nowadays, if that same philosophy is what I live by. As I go through the house from one place to another, I've got my feet on the ground and I've got a hand on something. Doesn't make any difference what it is. It could be on the side of a wall.
Yeah.
But if you've got 3 of your extremities attached to, not attached, but being used to touch something even, you won't fall. You just won't fall. If there's nothing there to grab, of course, you're gonna go over, but the trick is to keep as best you can, 3 of your extremities touching something. You're walking down a hallway, you've got 2 feet on the floor, put your hand out and just hold, just touch the wall.
How do you get to your car in the parking lot?
Well, take a chance.
Yeah.
That's what you do. I mean, nothing's perfect in that
This-
treatment.
This
But
reminds
it's
me,
very helpful.
I go to
A
St.
walker.
Stephen's, what's that?
If you use a walker,
Yeah.
that's the purpose of a
Yeah,
walker.
exactly.
In fishing, you use a
got
wading stick.
1 foot on
Yeah.
the ground
Yeah.
and 2 on the walker.
I go to St. Stephen's Church here, and that's the church up on the rock in the village, a big stone church. It has in that tower what's called a carillon. And it is a playable musical
57
instrument.
bells
It's a playable musical instrument.
manually.
Yeah, it's got a big keyboard with well, you.
The handles.
Yes, you
like
know all
wheelbarrow
about it.
handles.
Yeah. Big handles, wooden handles where you.
You pound it with the back of your
Anyway,
hand.
what we would do for several years, we would take the youth group of the church up through the bell tower and up a sheer ladder attached to the side of the wall, and it went to a little trap door at the top, and the roof of the church, it's not a steeple, it's a flat roof. And we get out onto the roof, and the view is spectacular. Getting there is, it is, I don't do it anymore. I did it 3 or 4 times. Because there's an open metal frame mesh catwalk that goes through the middle of the bells, you know. So one of those things you end up planting your hand on is one bell over here, another one over there, but it was pretty, I did it up until, I guess I haven't done it in like.
If
10
anybody's
years.
seen Stroll magazine this month, there's a
Yeah,
big
there's a
article
nice
there
article.
about the carillon.
Because right now, there is in town a congress of, no, I think it's North American carillonneurs. So there are people that play the bells.
Is there a trap door that you go through to get to the outside?
Yeah,
And so you're climbing up a ladder to this trap door?
climbing up a sheer, ladder attached to the wall.
Yeah.
Metal attached, and you climb up and then climb out, you push this,
One of the best kept secrets in Cohasset.
57 bells.
No kidding.
Once upon a time, Tony down at the barber shop said, when I asked him, do you know where the carillon is? He said, who is she?
Kind of equates everything to what it is.
Yeah.
David, but the kids have any trouble doing that?
No, most of them, no. One, I remember once, there was a young teen, whatever, 14-year-old girl who got partway and she had to turn around and go back. And we made it quite clear in the beginning, this, everybody's gotta be safe, there's no shame in not being able to do it, but she just freaked out when she saw it, and really the thing that gets people is that mesh, that metal catwalk that goes across, and it's gotta be about 30 or 40 feet or something, goes across. And
You look at it.
yeah, you look down, it's like, whoa, I didn't do that, you know.
The structure that he's talking about is way above the keyboard area. There's clearly steps all the way from the main floor
Yeah.
up to the keyboard where they sit and play it.
Yeah.
But he's talking when you go up into the. upper
Beyond the
area where
keyboard, and you
seven
go up to-
bells are.
Where the actual bells are.
Anybody ever climbed the Statue of Liberty? No, really?
Anybody climb Washington?
What my memory of it, I was only about 10 or so, but there's this circular staircase that you can, there's a big hole in the middle and you can see all the way down. But that's
Pictures and images of it, but I never did it.
Couldn't go up in the air.
no, but you go to the head. Yeah.
So David, isn't there?
Has anybody ever jumped out of an airplane with a parachute?
Say that again?
Is it?
What elevation were you at when you dropped?
No, I don't, it's all been,
3,000 feet.
So somebody gets up there
3,000 feet.
and plays.
Sundays and plays that?
Oh, absolutely, every Sunday.
Were you in the
John
military?
Whiteside is up there playing every Sunday.
No, I made a commitment at 2 a.m. at a bar to do this.
He doesn't drink anymore.
The chamber where you play it is
No,
only halfway up. He's nowhere up near the bells. And the other thing I found really fascinating, once I got up there, the bells are totally stationary.
Yeah.
It's the clap, and it only moves like this much to hit the bell.
There's some bells in Situate that have an open house every year and you can go and ring them. Lene Badger is
Oh, with the big,
somehow involved in that. Anyways, I don't remember, I did it once. Don't remember if it's in the Lawson Tower or close to, in that area. Anyway, she has like an open house and you can go ring
Yeah,
it.
it's at Lawson Tower.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
well, what's fascinating, this is a world renowned instrument. I mean, this is something that the people that are here playing it are like.
Well,
those
bells are probably 250 years old or something.
Yeah, they came, all of them came from England.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the heaviest one, I think, is 7,000 pounds.
Really?
And it's as big as the center of this, not quite, but it's pretty big.
And the
And it's
bigger
like
it
this
is,
thick.
the lower the sound.
Yeah, and then they have little bells
Yeah.
that are, no more than.
Fred,
that.
going back to what you said about balance, I fished with a guy who has he's passed away. He has Parkinson's. And it was very, very interesting. And this is not in fast water. This is just in a lake or a pond.
Yeah.
And he would go in fishing and he would have to have 2 poles. And that's what he had. That gives you the balance, the 3 points. And he'd have to walk, get to his place. Then he had them on, tied onto his belt. And then he could fish. And then he'd have to get him again to go. And I was in a tough place in the Indian reservation. They call it trophy water. And that means that they stock it with big fish.
Yeah.
So anyway, we had to cross this guy insisted that I cross the river, which I really did not want to do. And I ended up doing it, but I had one on each side. I was holding the both of them. That's the only way I could get
Yeah.
across.
Yeah.
I was still.
That paper you signed before.
Yeah. Yeah. Those
It
papers,
also included in the.
those papers, by the way, are not worth anything. You know, disclaimer, in Massachusetts, forget it. Yeah, yeah. Just
I- I
plan on getting sued.
I need to add a little bit to the balance thing.
Yeah.
I'm doing a digging hole project at my house, and I happen to have both feet, one in front of the other. And a stick that I was using to measure the depth of the thing, I put that in front of my 2 feet. And I was going like this, that stick ended up over here as in a triangle.
Right. And then you wrote it. Yeah, we had a cousin, my wife's cousin was 42 years old. Perfect health, everything like that, a teacher, and she's going down the cellar stairs and slipped. Because she wasn't holding on and she ended up dying. She was in a coma for 6 months and she eventually, so my wife is always giving me help.
Yeah.
Every time I go down, hold on to the rail. Well, I'm holding I can't, I don't have 3 hands.
And
You know.
keep your cell phone handy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she fell down and just hit herself in the head the right way.
Well, you know, we were talking just a little bit, some of you recently added here may not have met Jim Carpenter, but when he did have his stroke, he was at home. And it was Siri that saved his life. He was laying there on the bathroom floor, unable to move, and just shouted, Siri, 911.
Hey, don't talk to
My
my
grandchildren
phone.
can't
Oh,
read.
shit. Anybody's got Siri open.
My grand-
And then he had to give the code
I didn't idea what I said.
to his door, because he had
It's
a
half past.
keypad lock on his door.
It makes a lot of difference in your recovery, the sooner they get you.
Yeah.
My sister-in-law did it, her husband was out, he had a stroke, probably very, very good health, and she hasn't been able to speak for the last 7 years. You know, and, well, her health is just generally degenerated now.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, serious business.
Yeah.
So was there a lag in time in diagnosing her
Yes,
condition?
her husband was actually, her husband was away playing, they live in Foxborough, he was in Easton playing tennis. With the group. And so he came home and he found her. So he doesn't know exactly how long she was just laying there. Then, of course, he called 911, they did some stuff. And they did all kinds of therapy. It didn't do a bit of good. Now she's also lost. She has to eat and hold the fork with 2 hands
Yeah.
because she's lost control of one. And I don't know if that's related to the same thing. I just tough way to live. Seven years not being able.
Well, I have this thing that's, it's the diagnosis, the term is a benign essential tremor. And so it's not associated with Parkinson's or any bigger neurological thing. And I told the doctor, that's a bullshit diagnosis. It's not benign. Number one, it's a pain in the ass. And number two, it's essential to who? I can clearly do without it. But it really is annoying.
I have the same.
Yeah,
The toughest thing I find with it is carrying coffee in a cup.
exactly. Yeah. No, I'll have a half a cup, please. No, stop there.
Is it the same on both hands?
It's more pronounced in the right than the left, but both of them are. But, you know, I'm trying to deal with it with some medication. I don't know, I may have told this before. My brother does the same thing. Another name for it is called familial tremor, because it does tend to run in families, so I guess that means hereditary. But, he had DBS, which is deep brain stimulation to control his. And they literally opened the top of his head. And mine, you're awake during these procedures because you need to be, because they need to communicate with you about it. So, yeah, there's no pain involved, but anyway, they opened the top of his head, they probe, and had his hand up on like a pillow.
And he didn't have essential tremor. Surgeon. Surgeon.
Yeah, let's hope not.
They say.
But they did it. They find the areas that are controlling the hand, and they attach small receptors, little electrodes there. And then they install, it's sort of similar to a pacemaker. They call it a generator, but it's a little thing under the skin in his abdomen that will generate a pulse to go to that. And that little device is connected to a separate iPhone, not his regular iPhone, but a separate iPhone by Bluetooth. That he can, if he feels that tremor coming, he can touch that icon on the phone and it calms it down.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there a
Pretty
chance
amazing.
would he get directory assistance?
Exactly.
Busy signal.
It's called me twice. Trying to calm his shake, he's called me.
It's amazing some of the stuff that's going on these days that is gonna have an impact up in the future, because
Oh,
the
yeah.
headlines say AI can help read people's minds. And for an example, when a, and this is done by scientists and these people took a test and it's spent several hours in an MRI and that sort of thing. But anyway, for instance, when a person heard, and I quote, "I do not have my driver's license," this person heard that phrase. What came out of the AIA machine was, she has not even started to learn to drive yet. So they were not able to extract exact sequence of exact words, but it had the sense of the words that this person spoke, came out in the AI. And so there is some kind of concern about scamming. And all
I
that
saw,
sort of thing.
I saw an article about 3 months ago. It was relating to artificial intelligence and reading brainwaves.
Yeah.
And China has been experimenting in schools for a number of years. Little kids come in the morning, this and that, everybody says good morning to the teacher, and they put on these little strip things. You know, little band around here, but there's, I think it was 3 or 4 electrodes on it. And the teacher up at the front of the room can tell when a kid's mind is wandering.
Oh,
Mr. So-and-so, you.
and probably has a big keyboard there.
Light goes on, and I don't think there's any, they don't zap anybody.
They asked me about 20 times from the time I entered the building, which eye is it? Your left eye, or right up until the moment they did it. Now, this is your, they're telling you, so, maybe the system is not exact.
There's
It's
checks and balance.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And of course,
There has to be a safety protocol.
because of insurance, you hear these crazy cases that a guy goes in and he operates on the wrong leg or something like that, and all of a sudden they've got this huge lawsuit. That's what it really comes down to.
That story is.
Would you be willing, though, what I'm trying to get
Yeah.
some feedback so that I can go back to this guy and say,
I
would you
don't
be willing
remember-
to complain? Knowing that you weren't gonna get any response, let's
Play
say.
to an app that's not gonna